Spanish naming customs are historical traditions for naming children practiced in Spain. According to these customs, a person's name consists of a given name followed by two family names. The first surname is usually the father's first surname, and the second the mother's first surname. In recent years, the order of the surnames can be reversed at birth if it is so decided by the parents. Often, the practice is to use one given name and the first surname only, with the full name being used in legal, formal, and documentary matters, or for disambiguation when the first surname is very common. Naming system in Spain. Currently in Spain, people bear a single composite given name and two surnames. A composite given name comprises two single names. For example, Juan Pablo is considered not to be a first and a second forename, but a single composite forename. Traditionally, a person's first surname is the father's first surname, and the second one is the mother's first surname. However, gender equality law has allowed surname transposition since 1999, subject to the condition that every sibling must bear the same surname order recorded in the Registro Civil, but there have been legal exceptions. From 2013, if the parents of a child are unable to agree on order of surnames, an official decides which is to come first. For example, if a man named Eduardo Fernandez Garrido marries a woman named Maria Dolores Martinez Ruiz and they have a child named Jose, there are several legal options, but the child would most usually be known as Jose Fernandez Martinez. Each surname can also be composite, the parts usually linked by the conjunction y or e by the preposition to or by a hyphen. For example, a person's name might be Juan Pablo Fernandez de Calderon Garcia Iglesias, consisting of a forename, a paternal surname and a maternal surname. There are times when it is impossible, by inspection of a name, to correctly analyze it. For example, the writer Sebastián Arbo was alphabetized by the Library of Congress for many years under Arbo, assuming that Sebastián and Juan were both given names. However, Juan was actually his first surname. To resolve questions like this, which typically involve very common names, one must consult the person involved, or legal documents. Forms of address. A man named Jose Antonio Gomez Iglesias would normally be addressed as either Señor Gomez or Señor Gomez Iglesias instead of Señor Iglesias, because Gomez is his first surname. Furthermore, Mr. Gomez might be informally addressed as Jose Antonio, Jose, Pepe, Antonio, or Tono, Jose, Joselito, Jorzito, Joselio, Jarzico, Jocelyn, Antonito, Tonan and Nono, Josean. Very formally, he could be addressed with an honorific as Don Jose Antonio or Don Jose. Colombian writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez is sometimes incorrectly referred to in English media as Mr. Marquez, when it should be Mr. Garcia Marquez or simply Mr. Garcia. It is not unusual, when the first surname is very common, for a person to be referred to casually by his or her second surname. For example, Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero is often called simply Zapatero, the name he inherited from his mother's family. Since Rodriguez is a common surname and may be ambiguous, the same occurs with another former Spanish socialist leader, Alfredo Pérez Rubalcaba, with the poet and dramatist Federico Garcia Lorca, and with the painter Pablo Ruiz Picasso. It would nonetheless be a mistake to index Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero under Z as Zapatero, or Federico Garcia Lorca under L as Lorca, in an English-speaking environment. Spanish-named people sometimes hyphenate the surnames to avoid Anglophone confusion or to fill in forms with only one space provided for last name. Thus, Mr. Jose Antonio Gomez Iglesias. A practical option to spare an explanation is using a single surname composed of two separate words. Forenames. Parents choose the child's given name, which must be recorded in the Registro Civil to establish his or her legal identity. With few restrictions, parents can now choose any name. Common sources of names of the parent's taste, honoring a relative, the general Roman calendar nomina, and traditional Spanish names. Legislation in Spain under Franco legally limited cultural naming customs to only Christian and typical Spanish names. Although the first part of a composite forename generally reflects the gender of the child, the second personal name need not. At present, the only naming limitation is the dignity of the child, who cannot be given an insulting name. Similar limitations applied against diminutive, familiar, and colloquial variants not recognized as names proper, and those that lead to confusion regarding sex. However, current law allows registration of diminutive names. Maria and Jose. Girls are often named Maria, honoring the Virgin Mary, by appending either a shrine, place, or religious concept suffix name to Maria. In daily life, such women omit the Mary of the nominal prefix and use the suffix portion of the composite names as the public, rather than legal, identity. Hence, women with Marian names such as Maria de Los Angeles, Maria del Pilar, and Maria de la Luz are normally addressed as Angeles, Pilar, and Luz. However, each might be addressed as Maria. Also, parents can simply name a girl Maria or Mari. Nicknames such as Mari Carmen for Maria del Carmen, Marisol for Maria Soledad, Lola for Maria de los Dolores, Merch for Maria de las Mercedes, etc., are often used. It is not unusual for a boy's formal name to include Maria, preceded by a masculine name, e.g. Jose Maria Aznar, Juan Maria Vicencio Maripada. Equivalently, a girl can be formally named Maria Jose, e.g. Skia Maria Jose Rienda, and informally named Mari Jose, Maria Ho, Mato, Ajeo, Josefa, Josefina, Fina, Peppa, Pepe, Chepi, Pepita, Marase, or even Jose in honor of Saint Joseph. Maria as a masculine name is often abbreviated in writing as M or M. It is unusual for any names other than the religiously significant Maria and Jose to be used in this way. Registered names. The Registro Civil officially records a child's identity as composed of a forename and the two surnames. However, a child can be religiously baptized with several forenames, e.g. Felipe Juan Froilanda Todos Los Santos, but this has no legal significance. Until the 1960s, it was customary to baptize children with three forenames. The first was the main and the only one used by the child, if parents agreed. One of the other two was the name of the day's saint. Nowadays, baptizing with three or more forenames is usually a royal and noble family practice. Marriage in Spain, upon marrying a woman, does not change her surname. In some instances, such as high society meetings, and with no legal value, the husband's surname can be added after the woman's surnames using the preposition de. Juan Leocadia Blanco Alvarez, married to a Pedro Perez Montilla, may be addressed as Leocadia Blanco de Perez or as Leocadia Blanco Alvarez de Perez. This format is not used in everyday settings and has no legal value. In Chapter 5, Part 2 of Don Quixote, Teresa Panza reminds her husband Sancho that, properly, she should be addressed as Teresa Cascojo, by her surname, not her marital surname. Teresa I was named in baptism, a clean and short name, without additions or embellishments, or dons and honors. Cascojo was my father, and people called me, as your wife, Teresa Panza, though by right I ought to be called Teresa Cascojo. Generational transmission. In the generational transmission of surnames, the paternal surname's precedence eventually eliminates the maternal surnames from the family lineage. Contemporary law allows the maternal surname to be given precedence, but most people observe the traditional paternal-maternal surname order. So the daughter and son of Angela Lopez Sáenz and Tomás Portillo Blanco are usually called Laura Portillo Lopez and Pedro Portillo Lopez, but also could be called Laura Lopez Portillo and Pedro Lopez Portillo. The two surnames of all of a couple's children must be in the same order when recorded in the Registro Civil. Patrilineal surname transmission was not always the norm in Spanish-speaking societies. Prior to the mid-18th century, when the current paternal-maternal surname combination norm was adopted, Hispanophone societies often practiced matrilineal surname transmission, giving children the maternal surname, and, occasionally, giving children her parents' surname for prestige, being perceived as gentry and profit, flattering the matriarch or the patriarch in hope of inheriting land. The Spanish naming customs include the orthographic option of conjoining the surnames with the conjunction particle y, or e before a name starting with I, hi, or y, e.g. José Ortega y Gasset, or Tomás Portillo y Blanco, or Eduardo Dato y Radia, following an antiquated aristocratic usage. Not every surname is a single word. Such conjoining usage is common with doubled surnames. Ancestral composite surnames bequeathed to the following generations, especially when the paternal surname is socially undistinguished. José María Álvarez del Manzano y López del Hierro is an example, his name comprising the composite single name José María, and two composite surnames Álvarez del Manzano and López del Hierro. Other examples derive from church place names such as San Jose. When a person bears doubled surnames, the means of disambiguation is to insert y between the paternal and maternal surnames. In case of illegitimacy, when the child's father either is unknown or refuses to recognize his son or daughter legally, the child bears both of the mother's surnames, which may be interchanged. Occasionally, a person with a common paternal surname and an uncommon maternal surname becomes widely known by the maternal surname. The artist Pablo Ruiz Picasso, the poet Federico Garcia Lorca, and the politician José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero are examples. With similar effect, the foreign paternal surname of the Uruguayan writer Eduardo Hughes Galeano is usually omitted. Such use of the second last name by itself is colloquial, however, and may not be applied in legal contexts. Also rarely, a person may become widely known by both surnames, with an example being tennis player Arantxa Sánchez Vicario, whereas her older brothers Emilio and Javier, also professional tennis players, are mainly known only by the paternal surname of Sánchez in everyday life, although they also would formally be addressed as Sánchez Vicario. Navarrese and Alavan surnames, where Basque and Romance cultures have linguistically long coexisted, the surnames denote the father's name and the house or town, village. Thus the Romance patronymic and the place name are conjoined with the prepositional particle de. For example, in the name José Ignacio López de Arriatua, the composite surname López de Arriatua is a single surname, despite Arriatua being the original family name. This can lead to confusion, because the Spanish López and the Basque Arriatua are discrete surnames in Spanish and Basque respectively. This pattern was also in use in other Basque districts, but was phased out in most of the Basque-speaking areas and only remained in place across lands of heavy Romance influence, i.e. some central areas of Navarre and most of Álava. To a lesser extent, this pattern has been also present in Castile, where Basque Castilian bilingualism was common in northern and eastern areas up to the 13th century. Nominal conjunctions. The particle de in Spanish, the preposition particle de, is used as a conjunction in two surname spelling styles, and to disambiguate a surname. The first style is in patronymic and toponymic spelling familiarly, e.g. Gonzalo Fernández de Córdoba, Pedro López de Ayala, and Vasco Núñez de Balboa, as in many conquistador names. The spellings of surnames containing the prepositional particle de are written in lower case when they follow the name. Thus José Manuel de la Rua and Cunegunda de la Torre, otherwise the uppercase spellings Doctor de la Rua and Señora de la Torre used, without a patronymic Juan Carlos de Bourbon. Unlike in French, Spanish orthography does not require a contraction when a vowel begins the surname, but de L becomes del, e.g. Carlos Arturo del Monte. The patronymic exception. The current Spanish name law, Artículo 195 del Reglamento del Registro Civil, do not allow a person to prefix de to the surname, except as the clarifying addition of de to a surname that might be misunderstood as a forename. Thus, a child would be registered as Pedro de Miguel Jiménez, to avoid the surname Miguel being mistaken as the second part of a composite name, as Pedro Miguel, bearing the de particle, does not necessarily denote a noble family, especially in Castile and Álava, that are usually applied to the place name from which the person and his or her ancestors originated. However, in the 16th and 17th centuries, the usage of de spread as a way of denoting the bearer's noble heritage to avoid the misperception that he or she is either a Jew or a Moor. In that time, many people, regardless of their true origins, used the particle e.g. Miguel de Cervantes, Lope de Vega, etc. Moreover, following that fashion, a high noble such as Francisco Sandoval Rojas called himself Francisco de Sandoval y Rojas. During the 18th century, the Spanish nobility fully embraced the French custom of using de as a nobility identifier. However, commoners also bore the de particle, which made the de usages unclear. Thus, nobility was emphasized with the surname's lineage. The particle y. In the 16th century, the Spanish adopted the copulative conjunction y to distinguish a person's surnames. Thus the Andalusian Baroque writer Luis de Góngora y Argot, the Aragonese painter Francisco José de Goya y Lucience, the Andalusian artist Pablo Diego Ruiz y Picasso, and the Madrilenian liberal philosopher José Ortega y Gasset. In Hispanic America, this spelling convention was common to clergymen, and sanctioned by the later Registro Civil of 1870, requiring birth certificates indicating the paternal and maternal surnames conjoined with one. Thus, Felipe González y Márquez and José María Aznar y López are the respective true names of the Spanish politicians Felipe González Márquez and José María Aznar López. However, unlike in Catalan, the Spanish usage is infrequent. In the Philippines, y and its associated usage are retained only in formal state documents such as police records, but otherwise dropped in favor of a more American naming order. The conjunction y avoids denominational confusion when the paternal surname might appear to be a name, hence the physiologist Santiago Ramon y. Cargil might appear to be named Santiago Ramon and surnamed Cargil. Likewise, likewise the jurist Francisco Tomás y Valiant, and the cleric Vicente Enrique y Tarancón. Without the conjunction, the footballer Rafael Martín Vázquez, when referred to by his surnames Martín Vázquez, mistakenly appears to be forenamed Martin rather than Rafael, whilst, to his annoyance, the linguist Fernando Lázaro Carreta occasionally was addressed as Don Lázaro, rather than as Don Fernando. Moreover, when the maternal surname begins with an I vowel sound, written with either the vowel and the vowel Y or the combination high plus consonant, Spanish euphony substitutes C in place of Y, thus the example of the Spanish statesman Eduardo Dato y Heredia. Denotations. To communicate a person's social identity, Spanish naming customs provide orthographic means, such as suffix letter abbreviations, surname spellings, and place names, which denote and connote the person's place in society. Identity and descent. A man named like his father might append the lowercase suffix h to his surname, thus distinguishing himself Juan Gómez Marcos H from his father Juan Gómez Marcos. The English analog is Junior. EZ. Spanish surnames ending in EZ originated as patronymics denoting the son of Fernández González, yet not every such surname is patronymic, because in many Spanish dialects the Spanish language letters Z and S are pronounced alike, leading to the same word being spelt with either S or Z. In Hispano-American Spanish, the EZ spellings of Chavez, Cortés and Valdez are not patronymic surnames, because they are variant spellings of the Iberian Spanish spelling with S, as in the names of Manuel Chavez González, Hernán Cortés and Victor Valdez. For more on the Z surnames in Spanish, see Influences on the Spanish language. Foundlings Anonymous. Foundlings were a naming problem for civil registrars, but such anonymous children were often named toponymically, after the town where they were found. Because most foundlings were reared in church orphanages, they were often given the surnames Iglesia or Iglesias and Cruz. Blanco was another option. A toponymical first surname might be followed as second surname by Iglesia or Cruz. Foundlings often were surnamed expositus exposita, which marked them and the descendants as of low caste and social class, people without social pedigree. In the Catalan language, the surname Deulofeu was often given to foundlings. In 1921, Spanish law allowed the surname Expositu to be changed without charge. In Aragon, anonymous children used to receive as well the family surname Gracia de Gracia, because they were thought to survive by the grace of God. Foreign citizens. In Spain, legal and illegal foreign immigrants retain use of the cultural naming customs, yet upon becoming Spanish citizens, they are legally obliged to assume Spanish-style names. If the naturalized person is from a one-surname culture, the actual surname is duplicated. Therefore, the English name George Albert Duran becomes the Spanish name George Albert Duran Duran. Yet the law optionally allows him to adopt his mother's maiden name as his maternal surname. Formerly, Spanish naming customs conflate his name, George, and his middle name, Albert, to the composite name, George Albert, and his sole surname, Duran, is duplicated as his paternal and maternal surnames. Also, the resource of repeat the mother's surname was adopted in Chile, to ensure that the children of single mothers has a double surname and would not be discriminated in the school. Flamenco artists. Historically, flamenco artists seldom used the proper names, according to the flamenco guitarist Juan Serrano. This was because flamenco was considered disreputable and they did not want to embarrass the families. We have to start with the history of the gypsies in Spain. They gained a bad reputation because of the minor crimes they had to commit to survive. They did not have any kind of jobs, they had to do something to live, and of course this created hostility. And flamenco was the music of the gypsies, so many high society people did not accept it. They said flamenco was in the hands of criminals, bandits, etc. And the girls that maybe liked dancing or singing, the parents said, "Oh no, you want to be a prostitute." This tradition has persisted to the present day, even though flamenco is now legitimate. Sometimes the artistic name consists of the hometown appended to the first name, but many, perhaps most, of such names are more eccentric. Pepe de la Matrona, Perico del Luna, Tomatito because of his red face, Sabacas, Paco de Lucia, born Francisco Gustavo Sanchez Gomez, was known from infancy after his Portuguese mother, Lucia Gomez, and many more. Spanish hypocoristics and nicknames. Many Spanish names can be shortened into hypocoristic, affectionate child talk forms using a diminutive suffix, especially ito and sito and ita and sita, sometimes longer than the person's name. A nickname is usually derived via linguistic rules. However, in contrast to English use, hypocoristic names in Spanish are only used to address a person in a very familiar environment, the only exception being when the hypocoristic is an artistic name. The common English practice of using a nickname in the press or media, or even on business cards, is not accepted in Spanish, being considered excessively colloquial. The usages vary by country and region. These are some usual names and the nicknames.